The following is an Operation Podcast production. You're Uber driver, you're pulling up to your spot and you have to just quickly go, hey, this is what cold plunging is all about. What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is the same as noradrenaline and adrenaline. We could talk about the big social media stat, which is like 350% push of dopamine when you do a cold plunge, which is more than cocaine. You know, there is a cascade of bliss and neurochemicals in the body that is going to make you feel in a heightened state and an excited state. And when you get out, you're going to have a parasympathetic rebound. You're going to have oxytocin if you do it with other people. So there's all these neurochemical reasons to do it. But at the end of the day, I think stretching people to their greatest capacity, and if someone's listening to this right now, knowing that you can do hard things, it is a mirror to everything else you do in your life, creating a stretch of your window of tolerance. It's about you're deliberately doing something that's a bit beyond, you're finding your edges, and you are settling yourself into that edge so that you can recognize how much stronger you actually are than you believe about yourself, and how you can show up in the world with you get a greater capacity from it. As you push your edges, you create resilience, right? This is like the point, this is the longevity piece, this is the way we show up in the world piece, is being more resilient. Hey, it's Kristin Weitzel. I'm here on EverForward talking all about cold exposure therapy and why it's amazing for you.
Hey friends, welcome to EverForward Radio. Just want to say thank you so much. You watching the show right here, right now on YouTube has been an incredible thing to experience the last few months. We have seen tremendous growth, over 60,000 new subscribers just in the last 2 months alone. So for that, I say thank you. I appreciate you. My goal here is to help bring information and education and entertainment to help your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, to help move you forward in these areas of well-being, but also collectively your entire life, to live a life ever forward. So if you subscribe to the show, thank you. If you're watching right now and you're new, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Honestly, it goes a long, long way over here at the show. It helps us grow, reach other people, help as many people as possible live a life ever forward. Thank you. Welcome to the show. I don't always, the one on my front porch took like a year off for personal health matters. And so I really want the audience to just kind of think about and listen, is it worth it for me? And get clarity as to what matters to you, what are your goals, and maybe here's a way to kind of add it or optimize it a little bit.
Yeah. And a lot of this is all a great opener. What I think a lot of what we see is in the landscape of specifically cold too, is the sensational nature of it on like the gram, right? It's like Instagram and cold plunging, and there's like a famous, reel or something where the guy has this like double-headed axe and is jumping off a fjord, into the cold water that's like hundreds of feet below.
I've seen that, yeah.
It's like,
wow.
And then it makes it a little unapproachable to most people, and specifically to females. I work with a lot of women who are like, okay, that's just like too much. It's like the dawn of biohacking when Ben Greenfield was like, I'm injecting things and red lighting my testicles, and and it just seemed like a lot of risk in there. But what I really see and what I really want to say to the audience and anyone who's listening is we're going to talk about cold and we'll talk about heat. And these really are tools that have existed for thousands of years and extremely shifted the way that people did health and well-being before any of us who are alive on the planet today. And if I'm thinking about it from the landscape of your audience, it's like, what makes us able to be super present with ourselves, with our lives, with our families, with our friends? And I think that there is something, I know that there is something to the landscape of cold, the landscape of heat, and even breath, which will come up as we talk about these modalities, that is about presencing yourself and really understanding where you are at in that moment. Because as you know, when you get in a cold tub specifically, there's nowhere else you can be, right? And so checking in and understanding how to sit in that space and get the message that your nervous system is giving you. Yeah. So
honestly, if you want to stop listening right now, I think that is just such a great, well-rounded, general approach to this subject matter. That alone is extremely valuable. So huge takeaway already. Thank you. Yeah. Hey guys, quick break from my conversation with Kristin to bring your attention to something that is all the rage in both the sports, performance, muscle endurance, recovery space, but also up here, what we're finding now, the amazing benefits of creatine for brain health and cognitive performance. Let me put you on the amazing, the delicious, the scientific backed creatine gummies from my sponsor today, Legion Athletics. Want to boost your workouts with a tasty twist? Meet Legion's creatine gummies, the delicious, convenient way to power up your performance. Each serving delivers 5 grams of pure creatine monohydrate, the most researched form of creatine to help you build muscle, increase strength, and enhance endurance and cognitive performance. And the best part, like everything at Legion Athletics, they're naturally sweetened and flavored with real fruit extracts, no artificial junk. You can check the link in the show notes and video description box on YouTube here. Head to legionathletics.com, scoop up the creatine gummies or any other amazing supplement to fuel your day. And at checkout, make sure to throw down code EVERFORWARD. That's going to get you 20% off of your entire first purchase. And every time you come back to Legion, make sure to keep using checkout code EVERFORWARD because you're going to get double the loyalty points for future deals, savings, discounts, and so much more. You have this incredible kind of analogy. You had a social media, I think a reel or recent post about becoming a nervous system DJ. And I think that's such a great way for us to kind of wrap our head around this. Talking about nervous system resilience. You talk about tuning into your nervous system like a DJ with all the controls, the beep, bop, boop, bop, knobs here, twisty do there. It's a very technical term, twisty do. So I would love for you to kick things off by kind of describing for us, how can my audience really start identifying which channel, quote, they're on, sympathetic, parasympathetic, what those are, what they feel like, and what's your go-to strategy to switch gears in that DJ system?
Yeah, I love it. I love this. Yeah, the nervous system DJ thing is funny, and it was meant to be funny in some way, but it's literally what we are doing when we learn to be very adept at the ways that we can breathe and be within our nervous system, right? So you hear this phrase and expression, maybe some people have heard it already, that the breath is the remote control to the nervous system. And when we are expanding ourselves by putting ourselves in cold and heat, we're going to be using the breath. And so how do we become, and I have over 300 coaches that have been through my certification program, and what I'm intending to teach them to do is be the nervous system DJ in the room. And that might be with their one-on-one professional athlete. That might be with a mom who's like 100 pounds overweight who has anxiety. It almost doesn't matter as long as you're tuning into the bio-individual person who's like there. Like I say, context is king and safety is queen, right? So what's the context of the person? How do we lean in? And this nervous system DJ thing, I think, is like, let's not take ourselves so seriously. Let's not all try to be our Lord Huberman and get in the technical science all the time with like 3 hours of podcasting about, the afferent fibers, although we can talk about that stuff too. But let's talk about what's really going to make effective and positive change. And that is, the more understanding you have about how your nervous system functions and where you get into fight or flight or freeze, or when you're downregulated, which is parasympathetic. It's rest, digest, socialize, have sex. Like those things are really important in our lives. How do we get to navigate those pieces of the puzzle? And we can do that relatively easily if we understand that when we're breathing through our nose, we typically will elicit more of a parasympathetic response. And when we're breathing through our mouth, we will tend to energize ourselves or put ourselves in a more an excitatory state. And so how do we play with those variables based on what we need and what's going on around us? And then, like, I always say to people, like, the coolest thing you can do if you want to see nervous systems all over the place is go to the airport a little early before your flight, right? And you can kind of see, like, the cooing baby that's hanging out at the gate that doesn't really care that there's a lot going on and they're just, like, chilling. Then perhaps that's, like, your parasympathetic nervous system. And then you have the person who's, like, the gate closes in 5 minutes. I have 6 bags and 4 kids with me, and they're, like, running down, traipsing through the hallways trying to make the flight. And that's your, like, sympathetically charged nervous system. And just looking at that and looking at other people without judgment, just like as nervous systems in space, you start to say, okay, I can see how these people are reacting and responding. And then the other piece that's important to know, don't get lost in the science here, but I think it's important we talk about the vagus nerve a lot, social media, in the news, et cetera. And when we look at that, it has 80% afferent fibers. And that means afferent fibers are coming from the body to the brain. So if we think that we can think ourselves out of every single situation, we're mistaken, right? If we want to really be activating our parasympathetic nervous system, if we want to understand the body and the brain and our thoughts and feelings, we need to understand actually how we feel. Like body scan, I feel warm, my heart is racing, my those kinds of things. We have to understand how we feel. And those are all like nervous system qualities. So we get good at noticing ourselves in the mirror, or perhaps interoceptively, which just means what does your body feel like it's going on in it inside. And I also have done that a lot by looking at other people and saying, oh, okay, I can see how this person is like absolutely disassociated right now, like in the ice bath. So how can I work with that system to bring them back to wholeness, downregulation, et cetera?
I had to do a quick fact check or a re-remembrance check for me. I recently heard that vagus nerve is Latin for wandering. So vagal vagus is Latin for wandering, roaming, which is a perfect way to just think about really how all the nervous system kind of just connects and wanders into this one place, the vagus nerve, that then directs it to the thought process maker, the decision maker, the brain. Most people don't know this, that we think the brain is the one driving the ship, but we get so much feedback the other way. So it kind of begs the question of, is our brain really in charge as much as we think about, or is it getting these signals to kind of really guide the decision-making process, maybe more so than we might want to admit, which is just a great another segue into there are so many other things happening to the body at all times that if we learn how to just tune in and sit with it and kind of feel it, we can really understand the direction that our body is trying to take us instead of like always fighting, which is then why we get into such high stress, high anxiety, panic attack, ulcers, so many different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like if we look at the system, like every 200th of a millisecond, our body is checking in. Our fascial tissue, our skin, the hairs on our arms, like all of it is checking in. Our body is, hey, what's going on in the environment? Hey, what do I smell? Hey, how does the eye gaze look of the person who's sitting across the table? My body's recognizing how dilated or not dilated your pupils are, my skin temperature, texture, all of that's happening every 200th of a millisecond. So if we think that we're actually thinking through our day, this isn't to say we aren't like smart and we can't control the controllables. Like Joe Dispenza would say, you can shift your thoughts, you can change your body's ability, but our body is so beautiful and it's doing all these things autonomically. So if it's checking in every 200th of a millisecond, and then maybe 50 of those check-ins are turning into me saying, oh, I feel nostalgic, I feel sad, I feel warm, I feel happy. It's sort of the aggregation of all of those check-ins. Then our environment is really and the stimulus that we have is really gonna matter, right? Our level of how safe we feel sitting in a room. Like I feel quite safe sitting in a room having a conversation with you, and my body is recognizing, whatever, your stance, your posture, you're paying attention to me, the eye gaze, all of it, and it helps with the connection that we then have. So it's like such an important piece of the puzzle. And also when we look at breath or cold or heat, these are ways that we can shift and state change the body. And I've learned very early on in sort of like my breathwork career, which sounds so funny to even say my breathwork career, my breath and cold coaching career, that it's not about, thoughts do become things, but before the thoughts, it's very chicken and the egg. I can breathe myself into feeling differently, which is going to breathe me into thinking differently. And if we want our thoughts to be the thing that's going to actually manifest, then like that would mean that if I breathe myself better, differently, more biomechanically correct during the course of the day, and if I tried things that stretched my window of tolerance, like cold and heat, then I actually can change my thought pattern over the long haul and feel like a different person.
Yeah.
Does that track all of those points? It's like so fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating is an understatement. Absolutely, yeah. So I'd love to kick things off, like I said, with cold therapy first.
Yeah.
High level, walk us through what is happening in the body and brain during cold exposure. If you had to just, your Uber driver, you're pulling up to your spot and you have to just quickly go, hey, this is what cold plunging is all about. What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Cold plunging is about creating a stretch of your window of tolerance. It's about you're deliberately doing something that's a bit beyond, you're finding your edges, and you are settling yourself into that edge so that you can recognize how much stronger you actually are than you believe about yourself, and how you can show up in the world with you get a greater capacity from it. And as you push your edges, you create resilience, right? This is like the point, this is the longevity piece, this is the way we show up in the world piece, is being more resilient by doing things that push your edges.
I was expecting maybe more of a scientific, roundabout, but I think that, again, just a great holistic way to look at it. And I think a way that is the most meaningful for most people and how we're actually going to get more people involved in this.
Yeah.
So, love that answer.
Yeah, and I mean, we can talk about norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is the same as noradrenaline and adrenaline. We could talk about the big social media stat, which is like 350% push of dopamine when you do a cold plunge, which is more than cocaine. You know, they're all this. There is a cascade of bliss and neurochemicals in the body that is going to make you feel in a heightened state and an excited state. And when you get out, you're going to have a parasympathetic rebound. You're going to have oxytocin if you do it with other people. So there's all these neurochemical reasons to do it. But at the end of the day, I think stretching people to their greatest capacity, and if someone's listening to this right now, knowing that you can do hard things, it is a mirror to everything else you do in your life. What other practice can you do besides a 2 or 3 minute cold plunge that is going to then sort of, you extrapolate it, it's a mirror to everything else you do in your life. And I put 5,000 people one-on-one in cold water in my life, and it's growing all the time. And those people get out, many of them, and they go and they reorg their company and they restructure, or they ask the girl out, or they get the divorce, or they go do the big thing that they weren't quite sure that they could do. And it's not coincidental. They're like, oh, I can do something that's actually bigger than I thought I can do. And I think it's a really strong reflection from coming out of the cold, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is fundamentally the most important takeaway about cold plunging is people, they're trying to find the science. They're trying to find, what is it really happening? What is really happening to me and my body that is going to move the needle most for me? But I think most people don't wrap their head around, first and foremost, it's you choosing to do something uncomfortable. When's the last time most people have chosen to do the hard thing? Now, I know my audience, that's not you. You're choosing to do the hard thing or the less easy thing most days. But for the public out there, general public, it really is just, can you commit to doing something you really don't want to do, but know that after the fact, you are going to feel more alive, feel more empowered because you chose that, you kept a promise to yourself. And then you have the confidence to be able to do that in other areas of your life. Take away all the science, all the brown fat, all the things, all the enhanced thermogenesis, whatever, enhanced recovery. But just fundamentally, that's what it is.
Yeah, and you get all those benefits. You get a boosted metabolism, like 200 for 36 hours. It's like a 200+% boost in your metabolism. Where if you think, okay, well, I want to be able to increase the way that I'm burning calories, then maybe I should be doing cold plunging 2 or 3 times a week, right? I have many women who come to me about like weight loss and recomping their body, and it's like, they don't want to get in colds, but then they're like, oh, wait a second, my metabolism's being boosted. And I'm like, I can't even finish the sentence and they're already in.
6 minutes a week versus 60 minutes a day, treadmill, working out, to kind of get that same boost. Yeah. Might be a trade-off.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely, you already know this, but it's definitely a piece of the puzzle that's like, it doesn't mean you can throw out your nutrition profile or that you shouldn't be lifting heavy things. It's like all important to do. It's just, I've done a lot of biohacking. I lift a lot of heavy weights. I do a lot of things, right? Probably more than the average bear and probably beyond what I should be doing. Just meaning when you're a biohacker, you test out all the weird things and you got to have some big fails and all of that. But there's no 2 modalities, and I've tried a lot of modalities. There's no 2 modalities that I put together, like understanding breath and cold, that have effectively and efficiently changed and transformed my life. And the one thing that we got to shout out is, and I talked about this briefly yesterday, the epidemic that's rising now and what I continue to see in the youth of America is really a lot around mental well-being and challenges in that area and loneliness. And the more that we build community, the more we build connection with our own bodies, our own being, as well as with like smaller communities and do fun activities together and bond in maybe non-alcoholic settings, the more that we are in connection, the less lonely we are. And we know because of the science when it comes to mental emotional, and I'm happy to talk a little bit about the last couple of years of my life, I've gone through the biggest anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation that I've ever imagined. I never imagined that I would go through. And these tools were the things that continued to keep me going, right? And then the mindset of ever forward, it kept me going. And so for anyone who's out there who might be struggling with those things, it doesn't have to be sub 40, freezing cold ice bath, 10 minute. Like it doesn't have to be so hardcore. You could start with a cold shower just to feel better. I was coming off of a breakup. I was coming off of a lot of heartache, grief that triggered a lot of things from my childhood. And how do we navigate feeling anxious? I mean, there's so much of that. And giving ourselves this natural chemical boost versus medications and all those other things. Not to shun medication or whatever people are doing in the world of plant medicine, altered states, but like, how do we start with our body first? And a tool that's as easy as like cold water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. Well, I'm so glad to hear you're on the other side of it, or at least navigating through it enough to talk about it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Of course. So I do want to get into, let's get a little heady here a little bit. Let's dive into how cold exposure directly impacts metabolism.
Yeah. Yeah. So the big thing is that stat is like you're boosting your metabolism for 36 hours. And that's like cellular metabolism and also like caloric burn. So if we are organizing ourselves to get in a few times a week, this is why it's great to do a one-off, because you will get a little bit of benefit. But most people who show up to be like, I just want a picture of me in a cold tub, they're not long-term affecting their metabolism. So setting up a consistent practice for yourself, which means finding a way to have cold in your life. If you live in a colder climate, awesome. If you have an ice bath at your house, awesome. Otherwise, finding a way to do that so you can have a consistent practice so that your metabolism can stay boosted, can stay higher. And that's just going to help your overall body. Your cold shock proteins are going to fold better, typically around sub 40 degrees in the tub if you're all measuring temp.
I have a specific question about cold shock proteins, so I'm glad to hear it.
And then all the cellular stuff is going to happen in a better way. And we get this, you see this litany of benefits from a cold tub. It's because the more your cells can speak to each other sweetly and, easefully, the more you're going to get benefit out of doing these practices. So I see so much. I train a lot, but in the times that I've had consequential, like day after day or 5 days a week of cold plunging, that is when my body sort of physically feels like it's in the best shape ever. So just the shiver response is going to burn more caloric load, and you're going to get a metabolism boost every time you're doing it.
Walk us through the shiver response. What is that?
So the shiver response is like the money shot. Can you say that? I don't know. But the shiver response is like...
It's a safe space.
Yeah. The shiver response...
Kids, earmuffs.
I know. I coach a lot of contrast therapy events and rituals and things like that. And the number one mistake I see people making, if we're looking to optimize, okay, do what you want and have fun with your friends and go in hot and cold. But if you're looking to optimize, the number one thing I see is people will be like, okay, I'm going right from the cold tub. I just like run into the sauna, right? Because I'm cold, I get out, I'm starting to shiver, it feels icky or whatever people think. And then they run into the sauna to just blunt that response. But what they're actually doing is you just did this really hard thing of being, let's say, 3 minutes in 40-degree water, and then you're missing the most important piece, which is getting out and having some sort of a shiver response, because the shiver response is a microcontraction of the muscles, which is also sending a signal to the body to get better, faster, stronger. Just meaning, okay, we have thermogenesis happening. Okay, next time Kristin does this crazy thing or Chase does this crazy thing, let's make sure that we optimize the cells. Let's get the cold shock proteins are folding better. Let's just make it so it's all more brown fat. All the things are happening in the body that are giving us the better, faster, stronger combo. So we want the shiver response. That's why I say it's the money shot. It's like where the body gets the signal. And if you go into the sauna and you blunt that response, you're blunting the shiver, you're blunting the notion that the body gets the signal. And so that's, to me, like you're missing the mark. And in reverse, it's the same. If you come out of the sauna and you don't give yourself a little time to sort of sweat, cool off, have that, reverse thermogenic response, then we get in the cold water to feel like, oh, this is easy now. Then we're missing the point, right? So I say 3 to 5 minutes of a break between cold and heat. And end on cold if you can. Suzanne Soberg would say end on cold, but I like to end on cold because I think driving home, staying cold, really forcing the body to heat itself back up over the long haul is going to give you the biggest benefit.
So if we're, again, going for general optimization here, we want to make sure after a cold plunge, we're getting 3 to 5 minutes of just letting our body shiver before we get in the shower and get ready for the day, before we get into the sauna, we're doing maybe contrast therapy. Before we do anything, we want our body to have that window is this to maximize optimization benefits? Or if we do a change state any sooner, are we negating any benefits? Or is it, again, just not maximization?
Super great. It's a super question. No one's done enough research to say like at what exact minute mark, is it 3 minutes? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 2 minutes? You actually are like, okay, you got the benefits, you're good to go, move on to the next phase. So I try to, just from watching so many bodies and being in the space for so long, it's like 8 years now I've been doing this, it gives me the opportunity to see sort of where a typical shiver response starts in the average human and where it falls off, and then that the shiver sort of completed its cycle enough for them to get in. And I love, like, none of us would be here in this space doing as much as we are if it wasn't for Wim Hof. And Wim Hof, quite often with instructors and like just modeling after what he's done, he's like climbing mountains in bare feet or flip-flops or shorts and no shirt.
Honestly, I think, do we have Wim Hof to thank or more Columbia? I didn't know who Wim Hof was until I saw him in all the Columbia ads. Like they were using him to like advertise their parkas.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
I don't know, like 15 years ago.
Who's this dude?
I literally thought it was an actor. I'm like, oh no, this guy's for real. So shout out, I forget her name, the CEO of Columbia, but she was doing these amazing marketing, these videos, commercials with him.
So
and he was barefoot in a loincloth, basically running through the Arctic Circle.
Totally. And so for his crew, the people who study with him, there's a lot of that, like doing horse stance, doing movement, doing like you don't want to get hypothermic, right? You don't want to go into hypothermia. So you're going to be doing a little bit of like movement. I see people get out of the cold plunge in Texas, where I live in Austin. It's 100 degrees out, and they're like doing push-ups and sit-ups and squats, and it's all cool. Like do that if you want. And you're using the exercise and the heat that you're making from the movement, and it's blunting a bit of the response. Like what I really want people to do is be like, let me just stand here and like navigate what the full shiver experience feels like and just be in it. So I'm fully getting the signal. I'm not blunting anything I just did. And I'm also, playing with it, like not taking myself so seriously. And also if you're on a mountaintop and you're freezing cold, then by all means, please do all the jumping up and down and jumping jacks you need to do to stay warm and survive it.
Columbia jacket.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So I was wondering when we were going to get into this, kind of poking fun a little bit, but I do see a lot of that. I see people trying to they're trying to just squeeze as much blood from the stone, whether it's for actual purposes or for social media, we'll never know. But I'm going to the cold plunge, I'm doing burpees right afterwards, I'm running a 5K, I'm in the sauna, I'm sprinting, I'm doing all of these things. I'm the hybrid athlete and biohacker all in 3 minutes the first part of my day.
Yeah.
You're going to get some benefit, right? But again, for general optimization purposes, going from cold plunge to any exercise, are you saying, are we missing the mark? And also, do we know, is it really person to person, that kind of shiver response timeline? Is it really just the obvious physical cue of my body stopped shivering, so therefore I'm kind of done with it? Is it a just general sensation? How does the average person really know when that experience has ended for them, so they can go into whatever next thing they want to do? Yeah,
awesome. I think it's like you may like it may stay a bit cold in your body, and you might have a light shiver response, but I think you want to wait through let's call it the worst of it, the worst best of it. You want to wait through sort of the heaviest part of the shiver to get to the other side. And then you'll know that you might feel a little cold, or you might be cold as you go into your day. Even if you take a quick shower, get dressed for work, put on your clothes, and then go to the office, you're like, oh, I'm a little chilly in the car still, because your body's still navigating that shift. So I think it's wading through that best worst part of the shiver and feeling into that, and then going on with your day. And then the whole other question is like, what are we doing after? Yeah. There's a big conversation, especially in like workout culture, where it's like pre-cooling before you train, which is like, it's awesome. And I think it really, it's smaller sample sizes, but showing specifically for men, boosting testosterone, and going from cold
plunge
into a workout.
Yeah.
And that, and Huberman will talk about this as well, but it's like blunting hypertrophy if you go in the cold right away after a heavy strength training session. And Dr. Mike T. Nelson has done a bit of study around it. It's like, if you're like, I'm sweating, I'm exhausted, or it was such a tough workout, I just want to like throw myself in and out in 15, 20 seconds. It's not detrimental to the hypertrophic effects.
But isn't that so, I had Sal DiStefano on the show, I think like a year or two ago, and we were talking about this, and he was flat out just saying, like, the actual negative net effects of a hypertrophic response of cold plunge after a workout, and particularly a like high rep hypertrophy focused workout, is so minuscule, again, for the general public. It's really not worth warranting unless you're a professional bodybuilder, or your primary goal is, I'm trying to just get as big and dense and grow as much muscle as possible, then maybe increase the window. But that's not really the case. Am I hearing correctly?
Yeah, you're hearing me correctly. And also, like, recognizing that 80% of the people that I work with one-on-one in the space are females that are getting to the gym to train on heavy weights at the best they can 2 to 3 times a week. And I just don't want anything that's going to like pull from them. But yeah, if you're not in clear heels or, super tan on a stage, flexing all your muscles and parts and glutes for an audience.
Men or women.
Men or women, yeah. Men in clear heels. I'm ready for that. Then I think it's less of a worry or concern. I get that question a lot. Yeah. The number one question I get asked when people are standing by the cold tub is...
So like we're learning today with Kristin, cold exposure or cold thermogenesis is more than just a trend. It actually has real lasting health benefits. And particularly for us guys, we're actually seeing how it's helping boost testosterone. And speaking of guys, are you feeling flat, low energy, or like your drive just isn't what it used to be? If so, listen up, because Joy Mode's testosterone support complex might just be what you need. See, their testosterone support complex is a scientifically formulated blend that supports natural testosterone and free testosterone levels. It also improves vitality, boosts strength and muscle, and even enhances energy. With clinically supported doses of KSM 66 ashwagandha, boron, DIM, magnesium, and zinc, you're giving your body all the right tools it needs. You just need to take 3 capsules a day, and about a month, you're going to expect a lot of amazing, noticeable benefits. Expect better stamina, mood, performance. It's non-GMO, gluten-free, and backed by doctors. Oh, and risk-free returns in case it's not for you. Head to tryjoymode.com. That's tryjoymode.com. And at checkout, use code EVERFORWARD to save 20%. Tryjoymode.com. Checkout code EVERFORWARD to save 20% off of their testosterone support complex today.
Is it going to be cold? Which I think is so funny. It's a bit of an anticipatory question.
How cold is it?
Yeah, is this going to feel? It's going to be cold, right? I'm like, yeah, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
And then people do ask a lot about the before and after training. It's a big question because I think there's concern from people who are like, I'm putting in all this work. I really don't want to have an issue. But yeah, it's like you could do it both. I will pre-train and I use it for my recovery days. And when I'm working with like a professional athlete or a professional team or collegiate team, we're going to do more cold plunging in season and less cold plunging out of season because we want like all the training and all the big heavy lifts, the building muscle, the things we're doing out of season, prepping for the season to be the focus. And then when you're like on the road, like I was mentored by Dan Garner, he works a lot of hockey teams. When those hockey teams are on the road, they're doing game after game. They're like tired. So we're giving them cold to be able to get them to recover, sleep better, and all of those things. Yeah.
And then what about the world of contrast therapy? It's a great upsell in a lot of new biohacking, wellness social club kind of things. So you get the sauna, you get the cold plunge, you do both. You're in there for, I think, 45 minutes and it's a certain protocol. Everyone kind of has their own different protocol, but you're going from hot to cold for about, 35 minutes, 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Is that a swing and a miss? Do we need to be allowing the Shiver response time in there? And also then how do we get the club to give us our money back for that wasted time?
It's funny. So it's like, this is how I lead my classes at like Kuya in Austin, Texas. And we both love Robbie from like Othership and other places. I think there's 2 things at play there. Number one, when we're in this club for 45 minutes to an hour of a quote unquote class or session time, et cetera, I always give guidance to people to take the break between, and they can sort of fit it in between a couple sauna rituals and a little bit of space and a little bit of chatting with their friends or whatever's happening. And the other piece is that I am such a big advocate of those hour-long, 45 minute to an hour contrast therapy sessions, because the other thing that happens is the neurochemistry from cold and hot makes us talk to other humans. We don't have our phones. We're in connection. We're in community, and we're like collaborating, networking, falling in love, all the things. And so I want that for humans. And so I think how do we have more joy and connection and community? And those are ways we can do it. Yeah. And people can just like mess around and find out and be like in and out of the cold all they want. Yeah. You're not breaking anything really. But also when I'm coaching those things, I'm trying to suggest to people to take the space between. And for the most part, people like listen. I feel like I'm a good guide. And there's always like a couple of the really like big brutish guys or a couple chicks that are like, I cold plunge all the time. I don't need to listen to Kristin. And like, that's what agency is about. That's what, people can do what they want. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So then what about cold plunging for immunity? What immune system benefits do we have in cold plunging?
Yeah, we say this a lot with like some of the research that has been done literally on Wim Hof. And, over time, people ask me, should I get in the cold plunge? Because I'm feeling sick or the flu and it boosts your immune system. And like the reality is because this isn't a hormetic stressor, which just means like we have eustress and we have distress. So we're giving a little bit of a positive stress, right? A stress deliberately to create an outcome that's positive for the body versus like distress, which would be like when Joe Rogan gets in the ice bath for 21 and a half minutes live on social media, it's like at some point it's diminishing returns. You're doing a detriment to the cells. So there's no need to go in that long. Let's get the signal and let's get out. You know, it depends on the temperature. And I know there are plenty of people that are going to say, I want to stay in for 15 minutes or whatever. It's fine. But really understanding how we navigate all of that from an immunity standpoint or from a response standpoint, because we want to get in when we're relatively healthy and feeling okay so that we can get this response from the hormetic stress to get the body stronger, faster, and more immune, savvy. And if we are going in when we're sick or we're ill or we're not feeling well, there is a potential that you're distressing the body. So going in when you feel healthy can, over time, help you boost your immunity and understand your body's like, oh, I understand here how to navigate temperature change and shiver response and sickness and just things that are going to come up in the body in general. And so many of us are used to sitting in air-conditioned rooms on couches watching TV. I mean, hopefully not your audience, but there's so many people out there that are doing that, we need to make it a little bit more challenging for our bodies to thrive so that they thrive even more.
Barring, obviously, having the flu or just being on your ass for whatever reason, is there any scenario where you would not recommend someone to get in the cold plunge that would, it would be more detrimental, basically, if it's just, I got a little cold, or I'm just feeling under the weather, or maybe I'm a little jet lagged, if you're feeling anything other than your perceived normal, would you recommend getting into the cold plunge?
Yeah, I love it for jet lag. Like I love cold for jet lag, especially if you're going through a big time change, because it just helps a little bit with that nervous system reset and circulation. When you just sat on a plane for like 8 hours and you get a big shunting of the blood, microcirculation, all of that's super beautiful. I think like the biggest contraindications I worry about, I worry less about pregnancy than most people, because there have been so many women who are pregnant who've been having a cold plunge practice and then cold plunge practice through their pregnancy.
I'm sure we could get a lot of data from like Norway, Finland.
Totally. And
like
it can be so safe. And also whenever anyone shows up and if they are pregnant or think they're pregnant and they're working with me, I say to them like, I'm happy that you're here. You have to understand that this is your own autonomous choice, because it's really just with hormone fluctuation, all the things that are going on. I'm never going to tell someone to get in. It's harder to get pregnant nowadays than it ever was. So maybe why take the risk if you never had a cold plunge practice before?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe just wait it out. Maybe don't, if you're not drinking, you're not cold plunging, and you do it after. And
I'm curious if there's any data of maybe women that were doing it for months and didn't even know they were pregnant.
I'm sure. And there are plenty of women doing it on Instagram and again, in Finland, in Norway, and all the places where they would have said, cold plunging was started, the Finns always want to take credit for it, all that in sauna culture. But women have been doing it since the dawn of time. And Lindsay, who runs BirthFit, she, in her pregnancy even, and just like researching it pretty deeply, in the last trimester, she was like, it's 110 degrees out and I'm huge. And like, so she would sort of set the temperature to kind of what the local rivers might be. So maybe it's like 50, 52 degrees. It's not as cold. And
so
it was
a chili plunge, not a cold plunge.
And like a little more refreshing, and then feeling safe for her system as well, So really, having the agency to choose for yourself, working with your doctor. So I do talk about pregnancy as a potential contraindication, but it's also been done for a long time.
Yeah.
Western medicine would say Raynaud's, don't get in. I disagree with that. Again, I don't have letters behind my name, and I'm not telling anybody to do something against their doctor's orders, but I've worked with people who have very severe cases of Raynaud's over several sessions, 4 to 8 weeks of cold plunge therapy, where I will never use the word cure, but we've completely mitigated all of their symptoms, right? So it's boosting microcirculation. It's teaching the body how to shift in a way that is not giving them pain or tingling sensation in the extremities. So those are like the two big ones. And I think many people might listen to this podcast and say, well, cold, I hate the cold. And I want to say like, give yourself a shot at stretching a little, because once you learn how to do it and how you use your breath to be able to control the variables, control the controllables, you can breathe yourself through a couple minutes in cold water, and it really will change your life, change your perspective, change your understanding of your own greatest capacity.
We mentioned this earlier, but I want to kind of highlight it specifically, brown fat.
Yeah.
What is it? Why is it important for general fat burning and thermogenesis?
Yeah. So brown fat, white fat, beige fat. Brown fat is typically converted from beige fat. White fat is the stuff that everyone's like, I want to lose weight. We don't want to lose weight. We want to lose fat. And typically it's white fat. So that's the stuff that we're like, meh. Brown fat is the most mitochondrially dense tissue, which means that it's going to help your engine run more so than any other kind of fat on the body. And this is what the research was originally done at. We used to think that when we were, we stopped making brown fat at 20, around 20 years old. And now we know that that's not true, that if we have enough temperature fluctuation, we create more brown fat, and typical certain parts of the body have more than others. Like we see it on baby shoulders and up,
right,
And so it's controlling temperature change, and it's making us more, it's like making us harder to kill. So we want to build a little bit more of that if that's a possibility in our system.
And I think even, I don't know the study or know even what I'm referencing exactly, but I've heard that I think the old school of thought was not only did we stop making it after around age 20, maybe 25, but then it even like began to diminish.
Yeah,
So
that it would just be gone and we wouldn't have any more. Yeah. And we know that's not true now. Yeah.
Okay. So then what is the correlation here between cold plunging and brown fat, and why is it good for brown fat, or is it?
Yeah, more mitochondria, more ability to make energy, the more we can make ATP, the more we can burn calories. There's just so many, it's going to build back to our metabolism, and it's going to make it so that we can navigate temperature changes much more easily as we go out into the world, for our day-to-day lives.
So you're saying cold plunging stimulates brown fat
cold plunging, yes.
production,
Thank you for
and
clarifying.
maintenance?
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying. Great, because you're a good host. The cold plunging will change and stimulate beige fat to turn to brown fat. And this is what we want to have happen. We want more mitochondria. We want more powerhouses in our cells that are going to do the work of building more energy in our system. So this is a key piece of it. Like people will say, I've done a cold plunging practice for X amount of time, and I can feel that I have more clarity, focus, energy in the body. And some of that is coming from that brown fat activation. And other parts of it are coming from the notion that everyone stepped into this world with an amazing ability to do monumental things and everything they want, and like in the dreamscape that they set up. And we spend an entire life sometimes selling ourselves short and saying, oh no, I can't do the thing. Oh, that's too scary. Oh, I don't believe in my ability. And I just, again, it's like, yes, build the brown fat and get healthier and have a better immune system and have a better mental well-being in many ways, and also do the thing that you take 3 minutes and you can step backwards into the person you were born to be. And that to me is like where all of these things come together. It's like, how lucky are we to have a lot of people are just like, it's just cold plunging. Like I go to the gym and a lot of times the other notion is I'm going to get in and I'm going to like do the cold plunge. And there is a notion that I think people miss. And a lot of times, this is not to slight the CrossFit community, but I see it a lot in CrossFit gyms when I'm training.
Slide away.
It's hey, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to like white knuckle through the whole cold plunge. And I'm just going to do it because it's hard and I can do it. And it's not about that. It's like, how could you surrender enough into the real present moment to say, I know that there's physiological benefits here. I know that there are benefits to like my head, my heart, my being. I can be super present in a way that it's so hard for us to sit in stillness and presence. I can be hyper aware because there's nowhere else. I can't be in my grocery list. I can't be thinking about that girl I like at the gym or whatever because I'm right here in the cold. And when I get in the cold plunge, I really think to myself, the very first thing I think of, and now it's like, I don't have a lot of shock response and stuff when I get in, but the first thing I think of is like, I'm checking in where I am. And I will sometimes say out loud, whether on my own or someone's around, something that's really coming to me in that super present moment, like, wow, you're being really hard on yourself right now. And it's like a notion of knowing where I am in my life, or I'm overworking, right? Or I'm not taking enough recovery, or I'm not facing something that's coming up in feelings, my heartache or my grief, or wow, you've really been neglecting connecting with other people and you've been like, stealing yourself at home. And so those are just examples of things that come up for me. And then I can know exactly where I am in that moment and really be able to address it. And there aren't, in my meditation practice, sometimes that comes up, like so many places in our lives where we're just going, and we don't get a chance to like tune in. And I would imagine that resonates with you too, like a new child at home and all of that. It's like, how do I just have a moment for myself to be like, I love my kid and it's great and I'm on 2 hours sleep and I'm, just feeling into all that. So it's like a prime opportunity to use our understanding of this practice and our really being, instead of doing, our being, and say, okay, great, a lot of physiological responses in ways that I can improve my health overall in a relatively easy short time. And I really get to see who I am, the combination of the two.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I also, something else just popped into my mind about brown fat. I've also heard some discrepancy in the cold plunge world of people going, it's like submerging up to like the neck at least versus staying upright, kind of maybe like above the chest.
Yeah.
For some people, I think it's more of just maybe you're not quite there yet. Fully submersing, under your head or getting down to the shoulders is not there. You're not there yet, basically. So what you can do is just sit at it, at waist level, chest level. Are we, again, missing the mark for general optimization purposes to hit that more brown fat stimulation experience by we have to go at least up to the neck, kind of getting to the shoulders where predominantly most of the brown fat lives, or we can activate more of it? Again, general optimization here.
Yeah, hell yeah. Good, it's a really good question. Here's the answer. When I say to people, when I'm coaching people to go in, I say, I have them breathe with me for like 30, 60 seconds beforehand just to ground themselves before they get in the water, to connect to their breath in the way that I want them to breathe, especially beginners, because as we know, nobody on the planet can get into cold for the most part and not be like, woo, what's happening? So let the body do the thing it's going to do. But after I breathe with them, I say, without hesitation or expectation, I want you to step in all the way up to the neck. And then sometimes people hesitate and I'm like, 3, 2, 1, go. And then they listen to me. I'm not sure why, but people really like a 3, 2, 1, go countdown. But when they get in, when you get into the cold plunge all the way up to your neck, a couple of things are happening. What my goal is I want the human being in the cold tub to have the most optimal experience. Getting up to your neck or even your chin line is going to activate mammalian dive response. That's going to slow your heart rate down so that you are actually autonomically calming down just a little in the system at the same time that your mind is like, oh my goodness, this is really cold. What's happening? And thank goodness we have that response, right? If someone throws you in a cold body of water and you want to get out because you don't want to have hypothermia and die. So mammalian dive reflex slows our heart rate because it's thinking, well, it doesn't know that we're doing this deliberately. And what happens if our face goes in the water? We better slow down the heart rate so we can make the oxygen last as long as possible. And what I want to see and what we get to see, I would say 30 seconds at the short side. Typically it's like 45 to 60 seconds. And anyone who's doing cold plunges with other people, this is a key point. And if it's your first cold plunge, don't think about how long you have to do. Just get through the first 45 to 60 seconds, because if you get in up to your neck and you breathe through your nose, you will slow your heart rate. You will calm into presence. I mean, when you first get in, have a moment, take a breath, curse, whatever you need to do. But then breathe in and out through your nose, long exhales. And within a minute's time, you're going to have this thing called the turnover. Some people will call it the bliss point. And that is when your physiological body is shifting to, you've told it by breathing correctly or well or nasally, that everything is okay, and you're actually okay in this moment. You are controlling the controllables. Your mammalian dive reflex is kicked in to match set your heart rate to slow down, and then your brain is either looking around or having your eyes closed and thinking, holy shit, I'm doing this really hard thing. And when those three things connect together, your body can go, all right, I'm doing this, I'm winning, I'm successfully in this cold plunge, and it begins to surrender and calm down and feel like, okay, I have a little more time,
So like Kristin is talking about today, there are a lot of different benefits that we can get from cold plunging. And the beauty of this thing is it is pretty damn immediate. Right away during and right after that cold plunge, that ice bath, you feel the difference. You know what you just went through. Now imagine if you could take that qualitative measure of tracking and get some data behind it as well. Of course, I'm talking about Whoop here and their brand new 5.0 physical activity tracker. See, Whoop isn't just a fitness tracker. It's a 24/7 performance coach that measures your recovery, strain, and sleep. So after logging your ice baths or any other type of workout or physical activity, Whoop shows you how that directly impacts your heart rate variability, HRV, your sleep quality, and overall recovery score. So you know if what you're doing is really moving the needle for you. I use it every day. I've been wearing Whoop on my wrist for pushing 5 years, a little over 5 years. I love it. It is so easy. I love the data it gives me. Not to mention, it's helping me optimize my training, recovery, and even my bedtime routine. Join.whoop.com/everforward to get this guy on an exclusive deal. They got so many amazing bands and colorways to pick. You're going to love all of them, I promise. Join.whoop.com/everforward to get this exclusive deal today. In real time, if you guys are watching the video, you have to check this out. I want to show, like, I just remembered I did this yesterday. So I did a cold plunge yesterday.
Yeah.
And I wear a Whoop device here and I track all my things. And you can actually see exactly what you're talking about within that first minute. So yesterday I did 3 minutes.
Yep.
And you can see the first minute in the window here is that, oh my God, oh shit, I got to get through this. And then through nasal breathing, you can see just this insane drop off a cliff to go almost from like 125 beat per minute heart rate down to my lowest yesterday was 72.
Yeah, just awesome.
Yeah, well, not that bad. I mean, it's a huge spike up.
And you're still in cold water. So
exactly, yeah. So it's very real. The data shows that. I was just like, I have a example I'd like to share with the class.
Yeah, it's so perfect. And you can see it in people's eyes, and you can see it in their tissue, and you can see it in their structure and where they're holding, how they just soften. And some people, I'll have someone at conferences all over, I'll do this with, 100 people or something at a conference, and someone will get in the first 15 seconds and be like, I don't know, I have to get out. And I can get them. This is why coaching is a beautiful piece. You can get them to stay with it and get to that minute mark, and the next thing you know, they'll be like, let's do 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a whole shift of understanding what they can control in their bodies.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, but for some reason, like 6 minutes is easier than 2. On most days. Definitely some days my body's like, nah, get me out of here. But 6 minutes is sometimes easier than 2.
Yeah, and you're building adaptation in your system time after time. And sometimes it's good to like fall off from that, like take a few days off. And, I tend to be more conservative with female, physiological females as well. Like just the same with fasting. I'm like, okay, every single day hammering yourself with cold, especially different parts of your cycle. It might be a little bit of a watch out, a little bit of this like showing up with a lot of hormone dysregulation. Probably you don't want to like hammer every day a cold plunge. Whereas men on a 24-hour sort of testosterone hormone cycle do show better capacity for like doing it daily every single day because there's a bit more structure in their hormonal profile.
Okay.
So and for anyone who's listening, it's like, can you get in cold 3 times a week? You win. Like if you want to be hardcore and go every day, like by all means, but like 3 times a week is sufficient, is plenty, is all you need to do to like lean in to make those shifts. Yeah.
I wanted to also talk about duration and frequency. So is there a magic number? I think I mentioned 6 minutes or 6 minutes earlier, in a week.
Yeah.
That's what I always heard of, collectively within a week time period, if you can get 6 minutes total, 1 minute here, 3 minutes there, 2 minutes, another day, I don't math good. But, is that still the case? Can we get all the benefits from chopping it up 1 minute for 6 days, or do we need to do 1 day at 6 minutes? And also, does it matter duration and frequency more for men than it does women, and why?
Great. Women tend to have less of a shiver response in the daytime. Men, you have a peak testosterone right before noon-ish or so. And again, I'm speaking in generalizations. Everybody, bio-individual, there's so many context changes here. And also what your goals are, right? So the morning might be slightly different than the evening, especially for women who tend to have more shiver at night. So 3-part question, you have to remind me all the 3 parts to make sure I hit them.
All right.
The duration of time. Suzanne Soberg wrote a book based on her research, which talks about the 11:57, which means 11 minutes a week in cold plunge over when you add it all together, and 57 minutes a week in a sauna. I think that's great, and all respect to her work. And I think, there's a range that's close to that. And it's a bit like 57 minutes versus 60, 11 versus 15 minutes. It's all about your adaptation. Like, are you getting out and having a shiver response? Like there is a small percentage of the population that has some gene that makes it so you can't shiver. You don't ever shiver, which is super fascinating to me. But for the average bear, it's like,
I wonder, is that the COMT gene?
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
I have that. I don't shiver.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, oh, it's a little chilly, but I don't shiver. Interesting.
Yeah. So your body's like signaling in different ways, right? I don't know enough really about it to unpack it fully, but I run into people like that from time to time.
Like 2 summers ago, and I have the COMT gene. Interesting, okay.
So when we're looking at time or duration, it's like get a shiver response if that's something that your body can do. And that minute marker is really important to me as a coach and working with people, whether it's like, again, university athletes or people who are really navigating anxiety or change in their life, big transitions, because at a minute, you're going to have that shift. You're going to have that turnover. And then staying in, everything you stay in past that minute is something where you're sort of building capacity. So I would say, start where you need to start from a time and temperature standpoint. If you're on your own and you're like, I could only do 30 seconds and that's the best I got that day, then like let that be a success. Don't shame yourself for doing less time. But most people in general good health, I can put through a 40-degree cold plunge for 2 minutes without any issue. I rarely have runners. Runners are people who are like, they're in and then they're like, and they get out and they just run away and you're like, what happened? I can count on one hand the number of runners I've had. And again, 5,000 plus people in cold. There are so many ways to be able to do this and utilize the breath, and 11 minutes cool. And also the more you adapt, like if you're like you and me and we can do 5 or 6 minutes, I may do that 3 times during the week. I don't think that it is giving me a negative effect because I have grown my adaptation over time. So that's like the duration piece. And then the temperature piece, I trained with Laird Hamilton in the early days and Gabby Reese, XPT, and when we talk with like Patrick McEwen and breath, and we look at the research, PJ
Oxygen Advantage.
Patrick McEwen is Oxygen Advantage. I've like studied with him as well, and it's like when you look at the research around a little bit of around the breath space, but also all the temperature, it's all over the place. Like cold water therapy research is literally, it's the left arm, it's the whole body. It's like a wild, running river, but they didn't track the temperature every day, or maybe you get the temperature and it changes all the time. It's cold water immersion with a tub at 50 degrees, at 38 degrees. It's just all over the map. So it makes it more challenging. And when we look at the general average of the research, cold shock proteins function better. It kind of looks like this like 40 degree mark, maybe just sub 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've always played with that number for that reason.
Sub 40.
Yeah, sub 40. And again, this is the big controversy that just happened with Stacey Sims going on Mel's podcast.
Mel Robbins?
Yeah, Mel Robbins' podcast was like, well, women should be doing it at warmer. And there's another contingency of people, just if we're going to speak to the audience from Chinese medicine that are like, it's not good because of cold womb. And like, I've had all these people on my podcast. I've had conversations with Chinese medicine practitioners about ways that you can mitigate that, what's going on in a woman's system, why systemic cold is different than like targeted cold, and the fact that Chinese medicine perhaps was talking more about longer duration and we're talking about a couple minutes. And then also we look at Stacey Sims's insight. It's all this is all beautiful that we're having these conversations. It's always going to come down to context. Now, Stacey tends to train triathletes, and so if they're in the water for their swim and they're training around 50, 55 degrees, they're building adaptation to that temperature so that they don't slow their heart rate down or have too much mammalian, like the muzziness of mammalian dive reflex while their face is in the water, because you're trying to swim a mile, you know what I mean, as fast as you can. And so some of that is like when all of you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's not to slight her, because I've followed her, trained on her programs online and love her. And also what I don't like is when all of this information is having specifically females, but even humans in general, be like, I'm not going to do cold because there's like, that's not good because people are saying it's not good. It's like, you don't really know unless your doctor's saying don't do it. And that's not, that's your choice. But you don't really know until you've like tried some of these things and dabbled in them. And it's already, the thought process of getting in a freezing cold tub of ice cubes is hard enough. So how do we do that for ourselves? So I would say start at 45, do 2 minutes, get to that space, nasal breathing, sit down. I have on shiverbreathandcold.com/listen. I have both a cold plunge guided audio track that's 3 minutes for a beginner that you can do. And I have a breathwork track too that's great for like unwinding after, or if you're really nervous before, you can do the breathwork track to calm down and just like get ready to chill out. Yeah.
So many things in what you just said made me think of so many follow-up questions. Let me wrap my head around it. So I wonder, one, kind of talking about, you brought up Chinese medicine. I wonder in other approaches to healthcare, Eastern versus Western medicine, Chinese healthcare, Ayurvedic medicine. I thought about, in Ayurvedic, there's Vata, Pitta, and Dosha. Kapha, excuse me.
And the tri-doshas.
The 3 doshas, excuse me. So you typically kind of run hot, you run cold, or run, I think in Chinese medicine, you're moist or you're dry kind of thing. So I wonder if there's a unique approach, is there an optimization protocol for cold plunging based on Ayurvedic medicine, based on Chinese medicine? They all have their lineage and they all have clinical and anecdotal evidence to support a lot of things when it comes to optimization and general well-being. But, is cold plunging, are we splitting hairs basically? Are we getting into too much of the minutia when just looking at, okay, you're not a triathlete, but maybe you're trying to get the triathlete mindset. You're trying to get the triathlete benefits of a practice like cold plunging. Are we splitting hairs too much when looking at, all right, look, you just chose to do something hard. You got in the cold water for a couple minutes this week. It's 30 seconds longer than the week before. Maybe next week you'll get 30 seconds more than this week kind of thing. Is that really what we should be looking at more so than, what's my blood type? Do I have the COMT gene? What does my Chinese medicine practitioner say? Am I Vata Pitta? Well, are we just getting too nuanced basically?
Yeah. And it's like, there's so much discourse. Nobody's ever like mean to me, but there's definitely like practitioners that drop into my DMs and my inbox sometimes that are just like, it's a bit of like I'm going to hold on to this, until you pry it from my hands philosophy. I think people need to understand what their bodies feel like and behave like, and medically, and their level of wellness and what they need from a mental well-being or nervous system standpoint, and make some decisions for themselves, right? The agency to decide for yourself what you'd like to try. And also know that like, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid.
Ooh,
and it's not to say,
please.
Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid.
That's a
like,
clip right there. I like that.
That's a clip.
Like that.
I think that's like Anthony Hopkins quoting someone else. Everything's a remix. But like, be a little bold, right? Dare to kind of take the leap and the net will appear. Like all of these things we've put out in the world. And what does it feel like to do that with your body? So have some agency to make the choice to do those things. And then also have some reverence for the fact that you have a strong intuition and maybe something doesn't feel good to you. If you're heavily involved, I'm not an Ayurvedic expert by any stretch. I'm not a Chinese medicine doctor. If you have reservations based on like a cultural landscape or a philosophy that you have, then like people get to make the choice. And I'd like to see more people cold plunging and trying it on so that they can say, I tried it for 4 weeks, I did these things and I like hated it, it didn't work, whatever. And then great, then you formed an opinion, but like really trying it first makes sense. And then when you talk about like the athletics piece or someone's wanting to be a triathlete, even if it's just, a non-professional landscape, it's like I put collegiate swimmers on the block, they go on the block to go have their race and they're navigating stress in competition. And so the cold plunge can mimic what it's like for them to behave in a heightened state of stress. And they're practicing that over and over and over again. And if what we practice, if we get into the heightened state of real competition, if we're not practicing that all the time in the exact way we need to be, then we're not going to be able to get the W's on the board. And we watch swimmers not only with like breath control changes, taking one less breath across the laps of the pool is a W on the board. It's a win versus a loss. And we see swimmers having a split second, like a 1/2 of a second difference off the blocks makes all the difference in where they qualify. So why would we not, work to adapt these things if we're doing some sort of sporting as well?
You were also kind of hitting on earlier about, male, female differences. And also I think I heard you kind of briefly touch on like maybe where a woman is in her cycle. Are there preferred times during a woman's cycle to cold plunge, to not cold plunge? And again, for general optimization purposes, should it be general blanket statement, if you're in this phase of your cycle, absolutely cold plunge to maximize benefits?
Great question, for sure. I think there are plenty of women out there, and there are definitely culturally choices women are making, which I think are absolutely what women should be making for themselves around, I don't cold plunge on when I have my period, and because it doesn't feel good intuitively, or because there's a cultural piece, or there's a cleanliness thing, or whatever they want to do. I will say that if you look physiologically and you look at the research and you look at the different times of the cycle, we breathe less well, we're less connected to our pelvic floor, we have less sleep, and we are just a bit more like tired and disconnected the 5 days leading up to our period. So I'm not saying don't. I will plunge at any given point in my cycle. But the 5 days leading up to your period, for most women, are going to be the most uncomfortable time. It's going to feel a little bit more of the cold hit you. You're going to feel a little bit less connected to your breath, your pelvic floor, all of that. And that's because of like shifts in progesterone and things that are going on in the body generally during that window. So that's like 5 days before your cycle, luteal phase. And again, some women are like, I don't want to plunge on my period. But I always like to check in a second time with women to say, are you just saying that it's like day 3 of your cycle and you have your period and you don't want to get in because it looks really cold today?
Yeah.
Or is it really real for you, right? And then letting people decide from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing I see running rampant in the cold plunging, cold exposure therapy world is cold plunging with friends. I have a cold plunge at my home. I do it by myself. There's also one at my gym. And so sometimes I could be in the cold plunge next to somebody. Could be a friend, could be a stranger. I have my own kind of personal take on the community aspect, but I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you have any kind of personal experience, or can you share any, clinical evidence maybe of solo cold plunging to group cold plunging? Is there any, again, for general optimization purposes, any benefit to solo versus group?
I think it's really going to like introverted versus extroverted, if that's really a thing. I think it depends on like, let's say I'm in like a high stim environment all week with work and clients and whatever. I just might want to get in the cold plunge and be like leave me the F alone. I want some time and space, and I really want to feel into it and have this moment to myself. I know that there is when we're group cold plunging, we do have more of an oxytocin release, and they would call that the love chemical, and like being connected and bonded with other people and feeling in community and wanting to chat and, hear from the peanut gallery. Everybody's got their own. You can tell when people start getting out of the cold plunge, and then I'm like plunging someone new and there's a group of 10 people and everyone's like, oh my God. And they're telling stories and like singing Disney show tunes. Yeah. That's all the oxytocin and that's all the parasympathetic rebound happening. So there can be so much fun and joy and also introspection and reverence in both types of scenarios. I don't think that there's one that's like worse or better. I just think it really depends on like where you are in your body, and if you want to be reflecting or you want to have it's really nice to do a solo cold plunge. You have experience. If someone's doing their first time cold plunge, number one, if you're doing it in outdoors, nature, in wild water, please don't ever do it alone. But number two, if you're out and you're doing it and you're nervous because you're new, then I tend to find that people stay in longer when other groups are there, or they're going into a tub together.
That's my take on it as well. I mean, it's kind of whether you realize it or not, humans were naturally a little gamified, you're doing 2 minutes, I'm going to do 2 minutes, 10 seconds kind of thing.
Totally.
I'm not getting out till you get out kind of thing.
Oh, you got to see, I mean, when I put husbands and wives in, the wife will always be like, I mean, not always, but it's like a woman will be like, oh, I'm gonna let my husband go first. And then all she wants to do is know his time and temp so she can go longer or colder.
Not
and
my
it's just
wife.
So funny.
I've had it for 2.5 years now. She hasn't touched it.
Yeah, she's not into
it's not
it.
her jam. Not her jam. No.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Which also brings up another thought I had when you're talking about all the things.
Postpartum though. It's
postpartum
so
I think would be great, but also she's Iranian. So I also have this theory of, I think, I don't know if it's epigenetics or just cultural, but I do think there's something to be said about just a natural state someone is in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably from an epigenetic standpoint.
Yeah.
Ethnicity that kind of I love the cold because I run hot all the time. Mm-hmm. Her, not so much. I mean, she's Middle Eastern. So I'm wondering, is there something there that kind of propels us more so to be naturally inclined to it, to have a higher,
like a
less
propensity
acclimation
to be able to
time?
handle it
Yeah,
or not.
exactly,
if you grew up in Iceland versus growing up in Iran. Yeah, I think that, I don't have the real answer.
None of her family will
exactly,
ever get in the cold plunge with me. Yeah. So I'm like, is it an Iranian thing? Is it a Middle Eastern thing?
Crazy American.
Yeah. Also, none of them drink water either. That's my whole other theory of they don't need it.
Yeah.
Not as much as me. Yeah.
They're used to navigating, holding onto water in the heat or something like that. Yeah. Listen, all of this stuff is, I think it's so interesting to ponder. I certainly don't have the perfect answer or something that's evidence or research backed, but it's we can shift our entire system to be adapted to the cold or not adapted to the cold, adapted to the heat or not. I've gone to Burning Man 14 times and I
14.
will go, yeah, I know.
Wow, we need a sidebar.
And so I quite often would go do crazy hot yoga or sit in the sauna daily, weeks leading up to it, because I'm acclimatizing myself to the heat. So when I go out into the desert, it's something that I can handle, right? And so it's there's a really beautiful way that our body will respond to those things and adapt to those things that we can but again, that's contextual, right? It's and so, many people would be I hate the cold. I'm never going in the cold. And that's their prerogative. And also I feel you're missing out. Just try it for a little while. Even if it's a little bit of time.
I don't disagree. Which also makes me think about, so from epigenetic perspective, right? If right now, this whole, not the whole generation, but right now, I'm sure you would agree that there is a higher volume of people doing cold plunging. Because it's trending, because it's cool, because we have scientific evidence, whatever the reason, more people are doing it. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the next generation, the next 2 generations? Because when we look at epigenetics, it's really 2 generations down that we see not diminishing return, but up to 2 generations of whatever we do now, whatever, especially from a protein binding perspective of trauma response, resiliency, that's where we kind of see it go. So do you think in 2 generations from now, we're going to see just the most elite, highly optimized, everyone's running around with a COMT gene, just, higher immune system, less ill. What do you think is going to happen in 1 to 2 generations from now from people just developing this resiliency from cold plunging?
Yeah, it's such a good thing to ponder. I think, I want to believe that this generation that's growing up right now will be like more aware of themselves, will have unpacked more trauma, including ancestral generational challenges, that they will be more resilient, that they will just show up to the world like these old souls in really young bodies as they begin to expand, and perhaps even epigenetically just be harder to kill. And then I also think that that's going to weigh very strongly against like what happens with AI and video gaming and not being able to speak and having 4 years wearing a mask and being on Zoom. And like, I think that the deal breaker for us is if we don't get in community and we don't have conversations and we got to stop othering each other. Like, yes, find the others who are your people and like-minded, and maybe even not like-minded, but they're like, hey, find the others that you love and be around them and learn from them and grow from them. And then stop othering people, like pushing across the aisle. I think that there's like a really big correlation there, even though it doesn't feel like a natural, easy one, like how we take care of ourselves in society and how we accept everybody's differences, even if we don't agree with them. And that's like, that's the divide that's so hard to cross, right? And so as we get better, faster, stronger, smarter, more adept, more, understanding, all the woo, all the science, all the soul.
More supple leopards day by day.
Exactly. And then what happens to us from a communal standpoint, right? Like I think there's so much separation and othering that's happening that just doesn't feel like. It's why I love the communal plunges and spaces and saunas, because people can get in community more, and you're like in your swim trunks or whatever you're in, and there's no cell phone, there's no distractions, and maybe you can have some more real conversations with like your brain lit up from the cold or from the heat. Yeah.
I love that answer. Yes. Yeah. So I realized I need to kind of wrap us up here, and I lied at the beginning. We're not going to get to heat exposure therapy today.
It's okay. I think cold was really good to unpack.
This was amazing. I want to kind of put you on the spot. I know you're here for a few more days.
Yeah.
Maybe we can look at getting you back for a part 2 on heat exposure.
I'd love it. I'd love to talk about heat and sauna and the crazy towel waving, aroma, and how it affects
and the funky
us.
hats and all the things.
Weird hats, like the breathing in the heat, the guys who like sauna culture where people are like half naked or not, or sweating all over you.
Sauna culture is way more wild, in my opinion, than cold plunging culture. It's pretty crazy. But I do want to, before I get to my last question, I want to ask a couple more questions around cold plunging for mental health and brain boosting benefits, more that cognitive performance enhancement. How does cold exposure increase dopamine and mental focus, do you think?
So over 300%, 350% dopamine increase, which is just like, this is the chemical, right, that's like on the journey, right? We know that dopamine is the thing that we're like chasing down the road. It's not the thing that hits us when we get the prize. So it's keeping us, in alignment with the show, it's keeping us moving forward. It's keeping us from like sort of chasing what's next and bringing in all the things that we want, calling in the things that we want. And I think that really gives us an opportunity to, like step forward into more joyful living and more capacity for our growth,
What about from a mental focus perspective? Are there direct
good morning
benefits?
For sure. Yeah, good morning. Get in a cold plunge, get out, and like you get crisp and you get clarity. And especially if you're like shutting your mouth and breathing through your nose, you're oxygenating your system more. And many people are living many different ways in the world today. But when you get out of the cold and you have a parasympathetic rebound, you are living and putting yourself into the best opportunity to be in flow state possible. And so, it's anxiolytic. We know that there's plenty of research on depression and anxiety and PTSD. I wrote a protocol for an organization that's putting vets with PTSD through cold plunging to sort of measure against SSRIs and things they're doing. And these are vets that are like navigating, suicidal ideation and all of this. And we just continue to keep seeing like lowering anxiety, lowering depression, just being as good. Again, this is not about going off your medication if you're on it or all the things, but it's like being as good of a catalyst for change as a medication might be, so that we can keep ourselves in a much more positive state of being. And if it's going to save people's lives and just from a mental well-being standpoint, we know that even a cold shower and cryo show up as giving us more like a mental well-being, feelings of joy, feelings of wanting to have more connection, feelings of ease. So if we can have that in our body, then why wouldn't we use these tools that are, again, like so so accessible. You see like Dave Asprey and all these people, like women sometimes, whoever on social, like fill a big bowl of ice. Someone just wrote me and said, oh, we created this specific thing with your face shape to put, I'm like, just get a bowl, put some ice cubes in it. I know commercialism is ridiculous, but consumerism. But it's like, get a bowl, put some ice in it in the morning if that's all you have. What a great place to start. And put your face in it.
Right? Yeah,
just like stick your face in it. Make sure you got a lot of ice cubes in there. And of course, you have to like take your face out to breathe a little, but just over the course of a couple of minutes, do a few face dunks and tell me that you don't feel better. Like you will. We'll get that response in the body. And it's like, is that the difference between your day being like, hey, I really had a decent day today. I feel a lot better than yesterday. It's like, if that's going to be the case, then we should all be getting up and doing that, you know?
What about for sleep quality? Have you found cold plunging improving or decreasing sleep quality?
Yeah, beautiful question, because sleep is like, this is the first frontier of our health and well-being. So we find, and you see in research and a lot of the evidence that people are getting more deep sleep, better sleep, because you are coming out of the cold, parasympathetic rebound. Like my favorite time of day to plunge is around sunset. So you can get like low level light rays, you can plunge in an outdoor tub. Then that's what I have in my building. And then I can be like, oh, I'm really kind of starting to get my hunger on, like metabolism boosting, shiver response. I cut up some veggies, make a nice dinner. And then by the time I'm like, oh, I'm starving, I get to eat. And then like everything is just unwinding. So that I'm setting myself up for like the best night of sleep. Maybe 2 hours later, I'm going to bed.
Okay.
The one thing I would say is like, probably not cold plunging, like 2 or 3 hours before bed, great. An hour before bed, like it's gonna keep you like jacked up for a little while. So just like making sure people are mindful about when they cold plunge, like not too close to sleep. But we see, one of my very close friends is Molly Eastman, and she talks, Sleep is a Skill, she's the #1 sleep podcast. And so we talk a lot about how getting her clients into cold really can make a big difference in getting them out of rumination, getting them out of stress, and having them sleep much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything we didn't get to in the world of cold exposure therapy, cold plunging, that you feel the audience member absolutely needs to walk away with knowing?
No, I don't think so monumentally. I just want to reiterate the fact that I think if you're out there and you're listening to this, and I said for many, many years in my life, I don't really have this mess to masterpiece story. And like I'm coaching athletes and I'm coaching women in these like health optimization containers for 12 months one-on-one. And I don't really have a mess to masterpiece story. Sort of, aren't I lucky? And the last couple of years of my life really taught me about what it means to navigate the hardest times in my life. And it may sound simple, but cold water and understanding how to use my breath through cold water exposure was the thing that just naturally boosted and changed my brain chemistry enough to keep going. And so for people who are listening, who are going through, divorce, or they lost their job, or they can't, hard times happen and things can change over 24 hours. Like everything is changing even now. Tomorrow can be a whole different day, a whole different thing happening. How do we use cold to be able to feel better? And I just want people to know that it's a resource. It's there for them. Like I answer all my DMs when people write me to say like what and how and why. And it's definitely, there's been moments when someone's like, can I set up my phone? I had a woman call me from Bali and say, could I set up my phone on the ice plunge? And could you just walk me through a cold plunge? And I was like, I'm 100% here for it.
I just need a remote friend.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So,
well, my last question I ask everybody to bring it back to the theme of the show, which you clearly embody, and this has been a great lesson for me and my audience to kind of extract value in very practical, tactical ways to enhance our well-being, to move forward in our life. But I want to ask you directly, what does ever forward mean to you? Those two words. How do you live a life ever forward?
Yeah, I think 2 and a half years ago, my answer might have been a little bit different, because I think moving forward is the thing so it's a very much this keep going philosophy and mindset. And I also, I have a sweet reverence for this question because I know it comes from your dad, and I was very close with my father. And so a couple of the hardest things in my life were losing my dad 8 years ago, and then the last couple of years of my life going through a really challenging breakup that, again, it's not ever about one person, it's about all the experiences and the traumas we have in our life. So for me, when I think about ever forward, it's really about not the times that I'm at the top of the Eiffel Tower with a glass of champagne in my hand and a beautiful dress to say, I'm going to move ever forward, tomorrow's coming, and I'm so excited. It's beautiful to have those moments. And also, I think the moments that we really show our character as human beings and the courage that we bring to the world are the moments where we think we can't go forward, that we can't move on. And then we remind ourselves that we can and we must, and that it could just be right around the corner, the next big success, the next big love, the next big understanding, the next big realization on why something may have affected us, so that we can sort of soar into our greatest capacity. So for me, it's about like challenging ourselves to move when it feels like the struggle.
Love that answer. Thank you. There's never a right or a wrong one, just your interpretation. So thank you.
Yeah.
Well, of course, it will be linked in the video description box here on YouTube and the podcast show notes. But where can my audience go to connect with you, learn more about your protocols, your coaching, remote experience, in-person experience, your world?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sherpa Breath and Cold, I have a certification program. This is where I work with coaches and athletes, either one-on-one and teams. I have a podcast called Well Power, which I'm going to make Chase come on and talk about his life to turn the microphone around.
Happy to, yeah.
And I do through Well Power, through Sherpa, through Kristin Weitzel Official. I answer all my DMs. It's where most of my clients come through Instagram. Interestingly enough, to just like cut corners and not have to email me. So
it works.
Yeah, reach out, and I'm here to set the stage.
Amazing. Thank you so much.